So Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is taking place on Friday, and there's some mixed opinions on the fight. Some people think Mike's going to lose easily. Some people think Jake Paul's going to get killed.
Place a max bet. The max bet is 12,000. Hey, dog. Hey, dog.
Call myself a fan. I say Mike's going to win. Then put my money where my mouth is then. I bet $12,000 on Mike. $12,500.
Some people are betting big money on Mike Tyson to win. And if you look online, there's a lot of comments where people say things like Mike Tyson's going to knock him out in the first 10 seconds. This guy says 1.5 minutes into the first round, he's going to teach this boy a lesson. Jake Paul's going to wake up the night before drenched in sweat, terrified. And I get it, right? Everyone wants to see Mike Tyson beat up Jake Paul. It'll be a great thing to watch. But let's look at the fight for what it is. People seem to be talking about Mike Tyson as if he's still in the year 1980. Yes, at one point 40 years ago, Mike Tyson was one of, if not the best fighter of all time. But the key word is 40 years ago. That's a long, long time in the past. And for someone who's been boxing as long as Mike Tyson has, the damage he's taken across his career and the injuries he's had, obviously is not going to be the same. I think people are forgetting how bad Mike looked in his last professional fight versus Kevin McBride. Mike's last fight was in 2005, meaning this fight took place 19 years ago. And if Mike was losing to someone like Lennox Lewis or Evander Holyfield again, Vladimir Klitschko, I get it. But Kevin McBride was never that good. Mike had an okay start to the fight, even though he wasn't the same guy clearly, even compared to how he looked in his previous few fights. And by the time round 6 began, Mike was clearly worn out. Mike never stopped swinging, but his defense was non-existent. His punches seemed to have no effect on McBride. Kevin didn't just outbox Mike Tyson, he outfought Mike Tyson. Before this fight, Mike had already been knocked out by Danny Williams. But in this fight, Mike looks more like the shadow of Mike Tyson. And I think the commentators described it well.
Kevin McBride, a journeyman, is making Mike Tyson look like a third-tier heavyweight. 15 seconds left in the 6th round.
And if McBride actually wins this round, it would be a 10-7 round.
It's not a knockdown. McBride's just pushing Tyson down. And he's having difficulty getting up.
He wants Joe Cortez to help him.
He can barely make it to his feet at the bell.
Get in the corner. In the corner. That was a push. That's it?
Is that enough? That's me. I'm the boss. I'm the fucking boss. Enough, yes.
That's it.
Enough.
It's over, Alan. It's over. Kevin McBride is the winner. Mike Tyson quits on his stool.
And Mike says it all himself in the interview.
Mike, first let's start with you. Did you want to continue?
Well, I would like to continue, but I saw that I was getting beat on. I realized I don't think I have it anymore because I got the ability to stay in shape, but I don't got the fighting guts, I don't think, anymore.
When did you recognize that? At what part of the fight?
I don't know. Early into the fight. I'm just sorry I let everybody down. I just don't have this in my heart anymore.
Did you feel as though you had it coming into the fight?
No, I'm just fighting to take care of my bills, basically. I don't have that ferocity. I'm not an animal anymore.
Does that mean we won't see you fight again?
Yeah, that's most likely. I'm not going to fight again. I'm not going to disrespect the sport anymore by losing to this caliber of fighters.
So Mike was clearly done with professional boxing. He would return to the ring 15 years later in a light exhibition fight versus fellow legend Roy Jones Jr. Mike did look decent in moments, but Roy Jones did basically nothing in that fight. So the fight was basically Mike Tyson chasing Roy Jones around, and both guys would clinch each other a lot in between. The fight basically was 90% clinching. He would land a few body shots, but if you look at the fight for what it is, they don't look good at all, neither of them. And I'm not sure why people are trying to convince themselves that Mike Tyson looks like a top 10 professional boxer in this fight, which, keep in mind, is 4 years ago from now. If anything, Mike should have done more in the fight because Roy looks useless. And we can actually compare performances here because Roy Jones would fight Anthony Pettis a couple years later in another exhibition. And I think you can clearly see Pettis is doing much more cleaner work versus Roy. He's having a very, very easy time landing on Roy Jones, who's basically doing nothing. And this was the same level of offensive output that he gave to Mike Tyson. So looking at this, Mike Tyson had been outperformed by a 40-year-old, 150-pound MMA fighter, who Jake Paul would beat, by the way. And I still haven't brought up the medical issues that Mike's had in his old age. This is why the fight was postponed earlier, and we've also seen the image of Mike Tyson in a wheelchair. I think the most worrying sign for Mike Tyson is this fight, Evander Holyfield versus Vitor Belfort. Keeping in mind, Vitor Belfort is not a boxer, he's a former MMA fighter who's 40 years old. And the first punch he lands doesn't even land on the chin or the head. He lands it on the chest, which somehow rocked him and made him stumble all over the place. Evander threw one punch and in the process managed to throw himself out of the ring. At this point in the fight, it was obvious that a 59-year-old man should not be boxing, especially against a younger man. He'd get dropped by an uppercut, he'd make it back to his feet, but Vitor would pick up where he left off. These punches aren't even clean either. These are hitting the gloves of Holyfield and they're still hurting him. And then the fight will be stopped. So this is a worrying sign for Mike, who's also 58 years of age. Turning the conversation over to Jake Paul, what I don't think people have been doing is looking at the fight from a stylistic perspective. There's so much concern about whether Mike's even fit to fight that no one's really looking at the fight from a style perspective. Jake Paul, as you can see from these clips on screen, is at his best as a counterpuncher. His strength in boxing is counterpunching, timing people off the back foot, and we've seen it from the very start of his career. He's good at timing the overhand right, and even though he is a YouTuber, he has been improving every single fight. His first 3 opponents were terrible. Anderson Gibb, Nate Robinson, Ben Askren, all rubbish strikers. But Jake Paul obviously is new to boxing, and as we've seen him move up and improve his opposition, we've seen him improve the same way. He's not a world champion, he's not even top 30 at cruiserweight, but he's good enough to win these gimmick fights. And that's what Mike Tyson is, a gimmick fight. So stylistically, it does favour Jake Paul. Mike Tyson being a pressure fighter is going to be right there to be hit by Jake Paul. And since Roy Jones landed nothing significant in their fight, I think both Mike and the audience are going to be surprised at how badly he takes these punches, because he can't be taking damage like that at 58. To make it even worse for Tyson, Jake's been working on his uppercut recently. The uppercut being the clearest punch to land on Tyson, with how he stands and how he dips his head. Even in Jake's most recent fight against Mike Perry, Perry's style of pressure mimics Mike Tyson's a little bit, so Jake is used to that style of pressure. So believe it or not, this is actually nothing new for Jake Paul, because in his old age, I don't think Mike Tyson moves any better than Tyron Woodley, or even Mike Perry. I don't think anything overall adds up to a Mike Tyson victory. So if we look at my prediction for how I see the fight playing out, I think early on Jake's going to be patient, Jake's going to be circling the ring, Mike's going to land some body shots, and people are going to start thinking, ooh, Mike Tyson, he's still good, he's still good. And then Jake Paul puts down Mike Tyson with an uppercut in the first round. So there you have it. Like the video, leave a comment, subscribe. Goodbye.